1. And we're back with X Mondays, the Global Lesson Learned Mastermind radio show. Our special guest, Eddie Smith. We're talking about a variety of different things, but we're really going to get into this segment about the power of the Instagrams of the world, the Snapchats, the WhatsApps, and that kind of stuff, where they're not what a lot of businesses have been focusing on for the last 10 years in terms of social media, right? Most businesses have been focusing on the big three: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's where the bulk of their work is. But some of these other social networks have really taken off. And in some respects, they're going to take over where some of the old ones are hitting some stumbling blocks. And so, Eddie, you tell the people just how you discovered you had an asset in Instagram, because that story was really cool the other day.
Well, I tried my hand at a lot of things, and I was a person, I'm a lot more like you than you realize. You probably listen like this guy and this social media and this and that. Listen, when I was in college, when I was in high school, I was like, social media sucks, because I come from the era where, like, I was born in 1989, and it was just on the cusp where, like, technology was starting to explode. But it was a big deal for us to have computers growing up in grammar school. And so how did I know where my friends were? I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have Facebook. There were bikes at the park or in somebody's front yard, or you made plans on Friday before school was out, all right? And our parents called each other, whatever. But that's like what I remember, and I loved that. So when social media came out, I was like, no, this sucks. I don't want this. I don't want nothing to do with it. So I would deactivate my Facebooks and my Instagrams, not post for years and months at a time. My friend, he kept telling me, my mentor, we've been friends since I was 18. Look, Eddie, you need to get on this social media thing now. You need to do it. And I didn't listen to him. I wish I would have, but everybody has their path and everything happens for a reason. Well, finally, I listened to him. It was 2015, 2016. I just found out I was going to be a dad. I just had become a dad. And I was selling rigging, like wire rope, chain sling, shackles, lifting beams, all that stuff. Like, I'm more like you than you realize.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let me try to figure this social media thing out. So I had my card got repossessed. I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment that was close to my daughter's mom so that I could take my daughter home with me. I had barely any furniture. I had a crib, a bed, a dresser, a couch, no TV. I had no food in my house besides formula and baby food and all the things that my daughter needed. That's all I cared about. Does my daughter have what she wants? All right? We don't need a TV. All she needs is my love, her toys, and,
supplies.
Yeah. So that's all I had. And my phone had got disconnected. I had to borrow $50 from my ex-girlfriend. And she was my ex-girlfriend at the time. I didn't know who else. Not to get my phone turned back on. Not to buy food, but to buy a Snapchat course on how to monetize Snapchat. Let's just say I didn't monetize Snapchat, but I did learn something better. I learned the power of building an audience, because before you knew, I had a huge audience on my Snapchat, and I was just as nobody. I was broke, but I was working hard. I was going on there. I was just telling my story and just sharing with people. And I still have people to this day that have been with me since 2015, 2016 on Snapchat. But here's what happened. Through Snapchat, I found a network marketer who's pretty big. I won't name his name. And from that, it took me on to Facebook. And from that, it took me on to Instagram, because one thing I've always been at is I recognize opportunity and I run with it, right? If I see opportunity, I see innovation, I see a vision, then I'm attacking it. And so that's what happened. And so I got on the Instagram, and I was like, all right, so I'm on my phone. I'm like furiously like trying to break the algorithm. And so through just relentless, I mean, we're talking 20-hour days, and I still do a lot of this 20-hour days, just not like it was then.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out. And then I got connected with some people. And the next thing you know, I'm in charge of a community that's got like 4,000 or 5,000 people on it trying to learn Instagram. And I'm like one of the 7 people running it. And it was just like, wow. And so that's how I really started to learn Instagram. And from there, I just kept on knocking at that door. Like a lot of you feel like when you're starting your business or when you're doing anything, you keep knocking on the door. Eventually, that metaphorical door, it could be a real life door, but that metaphorical door, somebody's going to answer it. And so I just kept knocking until somebody answered it. Well, here's the deal. I ended up getting a job at iHeartMedia and Clear Channel selling billboards. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, you know what? Like, I've got a child. Their family is really hard, on me about like having a good professional job.
Having a real job. Yeah. Yeah. We know that one.
I quit Instagramming, but then I got that itch again, and I came back like a couple months later after I was working at Clear Channel, and I was sitting there, and I used to pump out millions upon millions of impressions. Like me and my friend at the time, he was also my business partner. We calculated between our 10 Instagram accounts how many impressions we were pumping out every month, and it was 1 billion impressions. And when I seen that number, and I realized, wait, I'm selling impressions on these billboards. Why am I selling these billboards? I've got a billboard in my hand. And so within a few days, I quit my job. I was like, screw this. And I went out and I got my first clients. But it seems like a lifetime ago, but it seems like yesterday at the same time. And what it comes down to is really just where a lot of business owners, not just on social media, but this will help you in your real life business, right? This will help you in your like face-to-face brick and mortar business owners, right? We lose that human touch and that human element because we become so focused on what we're delivering and how we're delivering it, and not the experience for the person that's receiving it. And so Instagram, if you want to be successful, is all about the experience. And so when I learned that, and I realized that it's about creating an amazing experience that creates an ecosystem and a community, right? That sense of community. And what really, it wasn't social media that killed community, and we're going a little bit more deeper philosophical, is the television, right? The television destroyed community. Because there was this case study about a town in Canada or Alaska that had no televisions. And then they introduced the television. And within 6 months, community involvement dropped by like 60% or something like that. Fact check me, I don't think that's the accurate fact, but it was heavily within 6 months.
Yeah.
People quit going to church, people quit engaging in the community, people quit like doing all these things that were community building, right? Disrupted culture. And so that's really what was the catalyst of all of this. But where I'm going with this is that as business owners, when it comes to marketing and social media marketing and real life marketing, we lose that human touch and we become just, hey, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. And that's how you're going to, one, keep your business stuck in real life, but two, prevent yourself from growing on platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all of that. It's about the consumer, not about yourself. And you know who had that right the most? It was Steve Jobs.
Yeah. But from a sales point of view, actually, there's another guy that you might want to look into from way before your time, like a century before your time. His name is J.S. Woolworths, and he created a massive chain of department stores that kind of took over the world in the late 1800s. So by the age of 32, he wasn't a silver spoon in the mouth kid. He did it all himself. But by the age of 32, he had 40 department stores across the world. I mean, same size as you see today, department stores. And so the journalist cornered him one day and said, how did he get to be so good at selling? So, frankly, I'm not a very good salesperson. So I simply decided to make it as easy as possible for my customers to buy from me. Yeah. That's why he put cash registers kind of every 40 feet throughout the store. So you're never more than 20 feet away from a cash register anytime you wanted to check out and go.
Yeah, and you see that model replicated. Actually, I'm pretty familiar with him because I love this stuff. And I'll even have another name for you after I drop this nugget. But you see this model replicated in so many other industries. All right, the United States has the largest standing army in the world. But guess what? How do we do that? So every time that we go and we help somebody, every time we go and we invade somewhere, we install a military base. All right, and so all throughout the world, all throughout the EU, all throughout anywhere you go on the planet, besides Russia, we've got all of these military complexes within X amount of miles from each other. Walmart, their business model, a Walmart within 20 miles in any direction you look. Target, same thing, within X amount of miles from a highway. All right, and so you see this being played out everywhere. You just don't, you're not aware to it because it's not something like you're at a bird's eye view and you see all these Walmarts, right? Now, somebody else that really pioneered the whole sales and marketing game was actually Sigmund Freud's son. And what he did was he created emotion-based buying versus need-based buying. And so what he did was with like the car companies and with a lot of the companies at the turn of the century, and if you want to dig deeper into this, Noam Chomsky goes heavy into this. I love Noam Chomsky, but basically making consumers feel like they're emotionally attached to things that are intangible that they don't need. Yeah.
Like and that's the guerrilla marketing with Conrad J. Levinson. A lot of the stuff that he put together, for example, he's the guy who basically convinced Colgate-Palmolive to make different flavored toothpaste.
Yeah, yeah. Or Tide
Yeah.
putting fragrance, making fragrance even a big deal when it came to laundry. When really, did you know that laundry detergent doesn't even clean your clothes? The water does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the funny parts to it, but and then because they created the scent-based laundry, now they had to get the scent-free to deal with the allergies to the scent-based laundry.
Yeah.
So they now the thing they started with is now a premium product.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have some really cool things out of that emotional-based selling, and need-based selling has. You're absolutely right. It has evolved, and it's a different track almost than a lot of the other sales processes. So we talked about the need to have an experience in the social side of what companies do. And I'm going to share just a quick little point before we wrap up. The In 1996, sorry, 1993, I was asked to write an article for Office.com, and Inc. and a couple others picked it up. The article was based on a theory that I came out with at the time called the distributed knowledge-based economy. And that's because at the time, everybody was gung-ho about the knowledge-based economy, which was all this premise that through the 90s and early 2000s, everybody needed to go not just to university, but they needed to get advanced degrees, and companies needed to hire everybody with an advanced degree they could possibly hire so that we would be a very innovative nation or economy.
Ethically failed.
Oh, big time. And the example out of Canada, and because they had offices in the US, was Nortel. And they literally hired everybody with a PhD or two, gave them six-figure salaries, threw everything they could at them. But it's a 30-year development process for new technology. It's not a next week delivery context at that point. They didn't have a budget for 30 years. They had the budget for 3 months. So before long, they're getting into more and more debt, and more and more debt, and more and more debt, and eventually the bankers say, "And you're going to pay this off when?" And poof, goodbye, all done. And I looked at that long before it came along and said, the problem isn't that these companies need or don't need these experts. They do need them. They can't afford them. Can't, not won't, can't afford them. But they can afford them in little slices. So I need that expert this week. I don't need to pay for them all year because I can't use them all year. But I need them on this part of the project for that week. Can I get them for that week? Sure. I'll have to pay a little premium, more than if but at least I'm only paying for that week. So the problem, of course, is everyone who went through and got their PhDs, no one trained them on how to cut up their thinking, cut up their work process, cut up their business model into not projects, but project snippets.
Yeah.
And sell them as project snippets and support them with other team members so that they could scale. No one taught them to put in business models to make this a business. They taught them how to get a job. Only the jobs don't exist.
Yeah, it's just like in the education system. This is why I'm my daughter's first mentor. I got a 3-year-old daughter. School, education system in America is deeply flawed. I don't care who you are, what you say, it is deeply flawed. You want to know why? Because it doesn't teach us to be critical thinkers. It teaches us how to take orders and be told what to do. And when you have a nation full of order takers and people that are so conditioned to be told what to think and how to think, you don't get innovation. You don't get, like you said, being able to be dynamic, right? And in a world where the other countries, like the EU, they don't care about this law because they're teaching their children and their youth to be dynamic. They're forced to learn English. They're forced to learn other languages. They're forced to learn about other cultures. Whereas in America, we're so ethnocentric that we think that we don't have to. And it's creating sheeple.
Yeah, and it has spread to Europe and Asia as well. It's very sad. And the challenge is much, much bigger than that. But when I wrote the article, my point was that we, the marketers of the world, were the only ones who could bridge the gap between the resource, this mineable, tappable resource of the experts that we're creating in titanic numbers, this human resource of expertise that had no buyers, but had this demand, unsaturatable demand in this other world that there has to be a bridge built. The only people who could help them were the marketers, because these people were never ready for it. These people were never ready for it. Somebody had to build the bridge. And that was the premise of the article. Fast forward 25 years, and excrement and wall and fan are all hitting at the same time. And now you have all these phenomenally gifted experts who are winging it on their own, because there really isn't a job for them, but there's a work that needs to be done that they're the only ones who are gifted enough to do. And so now we have this challenge of people trading time for money instead of building a business model that allows them to meet those needs and actually have a vacation and not stress out about where the next paycheck's coming from, that kind of stuff. So that's where, when you add that extra context, they're already getting the extra context of having to be business people when they thought they were going to be employees. Now they have to be content creators and business people and not trade time for money and not be employees, basically, is the point. And they are very confused. They're very confused.
Imagine.
So this is where you get to have a really, really big impact with somebody. I'm so glad we had you on. So I'm going to ask you the 4 questions that I normally ask of my guests at this point. And I'm just going to go through fairly quickly. These are the life lessons, game changers that really impact for everybody. And I've just found these 4 questions are so valuable, and I hope you'll kind of play along with me for today.
Yeah, I love it. Let's go.
So question number 1. In a project or a task that you recently completed, what was one thing that you did that was super successful and you always want to do it like that going forward?
I like that question. Yeah, so it goes back down to experience, right? So I've been fairly successful with my clients. Got a lot of video testimonials. I got a lot of people that I've helped make a lot of money, and it's really awesome. But I had created some like products, digital products and programs that I just didn't resonate with the experience that it gave me. And I was the creator. So I thought, all right, if it's not resonating with the experience it gave me, but this is the way that everybody's doing it, how can I change that experience? And so I'm the type of person, if I don't like something, I will burn it down to the ground. I won't even hesitate. I won't think. Recently, I just turned off like over $500 in recurring payments because I didn't want to run the program anymore. Not because I wasn't going to service the people, but because I didn't want to take their money for something that I did not like. Okay? And so that's the type of person I am. I did that. I burned down everything that I had, and I said, I'm going to redo this, but I'm going to create an experience that makes me excited, and that's going to make my students and my clients excited, and that's going to change the game, and that's going to really just revolutionize the way that things do. And so for me, I'm really obsessed with psychology and the way the brain works and like emotions and all that stuff, whatever, it doesn't matter. What I did was I said, you know what? I like the content. I love the content. It works, right? It's timeless. Works across any industry, anytime. It's timeless because root in psychology and human behavior and seduction and all the things that people, like they're afraid to tap into. But what I did was I said, all right, I'm going to create my trainings to where it's almost like work along. And even though we're separated by miles and screens, as they're watching my training and they're listening to me and they're seeing my Google document populate in front of them, or seeing me read through a Google document that I pre-created. Like last night, I was up until 4:30 a.m. recording sales scripts for my clients, my students, because I'm going to be able to set more appointments and handle objections better. And so what did I do? I wrote out the scripts that I know that work for me historically and work for other people, things that I've picked up from the professional trainings that I've had. I've been through Dave Anderson and professional phone training, and I heard me all these companies, PBS, such so on and so forth, doesn't matter. And I said, all right, I'm going to do this. And so as I'm walking them through this Google document while I'm recording my screen, and I'm literally like breaking down the psychology behind it, and they're seeing the screen go down and they're seeing me work through it. Or on another one where I was like, these are the ways that you can find clients. I'm typing in the keystrokes, one line at a time. Not only am I teaching them, but it's way more powerful than just having a PDF or a workbook, because their brain is actively listening, looking, and doing at the same time, because I provide them with the document that they can download on their own and edit with me, right? And so you're literally creating new synapses. You're literally creating new connections inside of the brain that is physically changing their biology so that they can become better at what they do. And I love that.
That's a big deal. And the bigger part from my takeaway from that is that having taught for most of my years, as well as doing, I've learned firsthand that the teacher who is excited and passionate about what they teach is the best you can possibly hope for when it comes to the learner and who they want to emulate, who they want to learn from. And it sparks their own original learning because they found somebody who actually cares passionately about the subject. Makes all the difference in the world. So that's a good lesson. Question number 2, what task on a project did you do recently that whatever you tried really didn't work at all and you never want to do it that way again?
That's a good question too. This one might seem a little odd, but it's being too caring, too consumer centric, right? So sometimes people just need a leader. And I'm a big advocate, so I don't know why I like deviated away from this, but I had a program and it was all about like, I had group calls, but I was trying to like cater to everybody because I had people in all the different time zones: Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, UK, United States, all 3 time zones in the United States, Canada, whatever. And so I was trying to like accommodate everybody versus just thinking like, look, there's this call, you'll figure out a way to make it.
Exactly, yeah.
But when I gave them too many choices, then what happened is that the attendance rate dropped, and then eventually like people just quit showing up. And the reason was because I was being too caring when I needed to be a leader and just be assertive and be like, look, this is how it is, this is how it's going to work, and either you're going to make it or not. Either it's going to be a priority to you or it's not. And there was no reason for me to deviate from that, but I caught myself there's no place for emotions in business. Now, Elon Musk will probably shoot me for saying that, but emotional intelligence is important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that ignore emotional intelligence. Companies like Southwest, Target, etc., they're exemplary in this fact. Even Tesla, right? Yeah. They're exemplary in the fact that Maserati and Bugatti and all these, like, and Ferrari, like, they're all very employee emotional intelligence centric. But what I'm saying is that I should have been more of a leader and less of a friend.
Yeah. And there are a lot of lessons to go directly from that. I'm going to dig into question number 3. What did you do recently in a task or project or whatnot that worked, but since then you went, man, I should have done it this way?
I set it up a membership community. And it was awesome. It was recurring revenue. That's actually the community that I cut off all the recurring. And what's crazy is that for like membership type things like that, the average shelf life is like 2 to 3 months of memberships. We had people like still paying $33 per month, and they weren't even like actively using it. They just wanted access to it. And I liked it a lot, but I just didn't like the way that I executed it. And I didn't like the way that they showed up. Like, they were paying me but not doing anything. And that in businesses, mine would be like, yes, I'm getting paid to do nothing. But for me, no.
No.
So I was like, all right, like, I'm gonna shelf this and table it and come back to it at a time when I know how to better move the people that take, participate in it.
Okay, that's perfectly good. Last question. If you get hit by a bus tomorrow, what's the one most important lesson that the person who steps in to fill your shoes needs to know?
I wish I could cuss right now.
The bodies are buried.
Yeah. It would be That's a really deep question. I would say that you need to scrap everything that I told you. You need to throw away any conventional knowledge that you believe that this needs to be. You need to completely eradicate anything that I created, and you need to step in as your own leader and as your own presence, because the only way that these people are going to follow you is if you're you.
Good. Solid lessons all the way around. Well, that's going to wrap for today. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I think we delivered a lot of value today. Look forward to having you on again in a future episode if you're willing to come back.
Yeah,
and I want to thank everybody for listening today. If you missed it or you only got part of it, very shortly we'll have the video on the Business Speakers Radio Network YouTube channel. So go check it out there. Again, this is Chris Kerr with the X Mondays Global Mastermind Lesson Learn Radio Show. Have a great week.